Holistic Hilda here. I bring you experts, experiences, and epic adventures to boost your health. I'm a certified integrative nutrition health coach, a certified fitness professional, and the host and producer of the Wise Traditions podcast. Today, I want to share with you a conversation I had with an amazing man. He's known as the poster boy for zero waste in Australia. His name is Joost Bakker, and he is fascinating. You guys, I spent time in his house, and every little bit of it was like repurposed or recycled materials. I was blown away. He started a zero waste restaurant in Melbourne and a chain of these restaurants, I think. He also is now building zero waste homes, and he's gonna have people live in them experimentally to see how they can do it. I just thought it was a fascinating conversation, especially important this week because in DC we're kind of celebrating a zero waste or less waste week. And I wanted to bring this conversation to bear. So let me know how it impacts you. I know it's made a difference in my life. Check it out.
I found this. How cool is this? It's an ironing board.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so cool. Oh, it's a shed or a ladder. This was the backdrop to the Ford Motor Show stand, and they were in a recycling yard, and I love the colour.
Oh,
guys
yeah.
called me and said, "Do you want one?" And so my mate painted over the top.
Oh, I love it. I see.
This is an old chair that was on the road, and we turned it into a light.
We are in Joost's beautiful home right now in the town of
Monbulk.
Which means?
It means gathering place. Aboriginal word for gathering. So this traditionally was a gathering place.
Which is so apropos because that's what Joost does. He gathers people together who are making difference on this planet. And he started out as just a florist. Tell them a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so in the early 90s I started doing flowers in restaurants, and I combined rubbish or stuff that people were throwing away with floral arrangements and turned that into art, and yeah.
Beautiful.
Still doing it 25 years later.
And then you decided to go ahead and open a restaurant with the same idea of repurposing waste. Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, so I became quite interested in the idea of zero waste. So in 2008, we opened a restaurant where we made our own butter, ground our own flour. We, work with farmers to give us stuff direct. So we got olive oil in stainless steel tins. I convinced wine growers to, instead of putting their wine in a bottle, to put wine in kegs. So we had wine on tap, and we got quinine bark from Brazil, and we made our own tonic water. So we got mineral water in kegs, and ground up cola beans, made our own cola. So whatever was generating waste, we would find an alternative, and it was just awesome. At the same time there was a great guy making whiskey. So it hurt because it costs a lot of money, but I'd get an oak barrel of whiskey with a tap on it, and we got like buckets of gin. Like 20-litre buckets of gin, with a tap, all in stainless steel.
So it sounds awesome, but it also sounds like a lot of work. Like, why would someone put so much into it, so much effort into doing all these special things? Why not just buy the wine in bottles, for example?
Well, I wouldn't have done it. There was no point. So I wanted to prove that you could have restaurants without generating waste. So that was my whole point. But it actually is my most treasured memories of having the restaurants, is building those relationships with farmers and growers and producers. And now in Melbourne, it's normal for wine to be on tap, and now it's normal to have, even McDonald's now has milk on tap.
Oh, really?
So that's 10 years. How insane is that? So in a place like McDonald's, you're talking about 1 million bottles of milk that don't need to go into a bin and don't need to get collected, and the milk producer doesn't need to buy the bottles, and you know what I mean? So it just goes on and on and on.
And so there's been growth in this kind of zero waste restaurant or food service business. And what about for people? What about for individuals? Isn't that your new project?
Well, yeah, I think that there's no point talking about stuff. I just think showing people an example. There's how boring, just somebody talking about, in the future we're going to do this. Well, stuff that, let's just do it now,
Yeah.
And when people see an example, they just go, oh, wow, I can do that. So many other ideas come from that. Stuff that you can't even imagine, because what I did with Silo and Brothel, the two restaurants that were zero waste, I just didn't have a bin. So you've got no option. If you've got nowhere to put your rubbish, then you think back, and then so you work from the end is the start, and you work back from that. And it just becomes, it's so satisfying, and it's so satisfying from a staffing point of view as well, because you get all these passionate people that hear about you from all over the world. We have people from all over the world wanting to come and work with us. And I'm still close with most of them today. You know, they've moved on to other restaurants all over the world, and they've tried to implement those things in other places. But one thing that it does is it encourages a discussion and an interaction with your local producers, because you can't really be zero waste unless you're actually interacting with your local community. So we moved in 2007. There were 69,000 houses in Australia with solar. Today, 2 million.
Whoa.
That's, 12 years, it's just...
It's exploding.
I'm very practical though, I suppose. So I just go, well, that will work.
You start figuring it out.
Yeah. And then this is the kids' side.
Ah, lots of room to play.
Yeah.
Well, so give us one example of something that a regular restaurant might throw away that you would say, wait, if we step back, we can do this differently.
Well, like a classic example for us was bread and pastries and muffins and all those sorts of things, So we get the wheat bags, we would cut the string, grind our own flour, and then once a month we would post all the wheat bags back to the wheat farmer.
Ah.
So sometimes you'd have a wheat bag that had been reused 10 times. You could see how many times it had been sewed, So that's one example. And in one restaurant that I had in Perth, we were using a ton every second week. So 500 kilos of wheat a week.
Oh my gosh.
So we would have one pizza on every night. You had no choice of pizza. That was our special. If there was broccoli, then there'd be broccoli on everything, We would have one type of bread, which was a whole grain, a 48-hour sourdough from freshly milled flour. And we had one muffin every day, but we'd make 100 loaves of bread every day, and because people would just come and all they wanted was bread and butter, because we churned our own butter, So and with butter as well, there's lots of yogurt, all these things, kombucha. We just had what we called a 24-hour. We had a really big kombucha mother, so it would convert really quickly. So we would make it on the Thursday for the Saturday, and on the Friday you would drink Wednesdays. So we would just,
Continuous, almost like a continuous brew.
Yeah, you could see the 200-litre glass vessels on the bar.
Yeah.
And we never cleaned them out. We just kept adding to it, and you saw the layers of the main kids are fascinated with that stuff, And then at the door, we had an in-vessel composter in all the restaurants, a Korean machine, and all the organic waste would go in the in-vessel composter. And then at the door, we would have brown paper bags with a scoop, and people would take the compost home to put on their veggie patch.
So I'm really sorry that these restaurants are gone. I mean, your restaurants are gone.
Yeah, but they live on in other restaurants.
Yeah.
So the idea is, people like Alex Atala in Sao Paulo, or Rene Redzepi in Denmark, or Dan Barber in New York. There's Silo in London. There's restaurants all over the world that have taken little bits and pieces, and as my dad used to say, I don't understand why you're getting all this publicity, because you're not doing anything new. We had milk in pails when I was growing up. And it's true, like all those ideas were not innovative ideas.
Right.
We just went back to a system that existed,
Which I love so much, because I'm all about ancestral wisdom and kind of returning to the ways of the past that were so wise. And that's basically what you're doing.
Yeah. And so, my next project is really about that too, because for our whole existence, we've lived in our food system. Human beings have been in the food system. It's only for the last 100 years that we have removed ourselves from the food system. So suddenly the food system is out there. 150 years ago, we were walking distance from somebody that had some cows, or somebody that had, so you would go with a bucket of milk, and this, for most of us, existed even 50 years ago. But what we've done in the last 50 years is totally removed ourselves from the food system. That exists somewhere that we don't know. That is why I think we're also undernourished, because we live in cities. Our waste, our nutrients, gets treated as a problem and as a waste, and gets treated and gets pumped out into the ocean, or gets, dumped somewhere. And we can't understand why our food is not nourishing us. So my next project is really about creating a house that generates enough food for you to live off. And I think it will be incredibly exciting food. And I'm using things like an Israeli digester, so all the organic waste goes into it's like a cow's stomach. So all the gas for cooking and hot water boosting comes from your organic waste. And then it goes from that into a worm farm. And then after the worm farm, it goes back onto all the plants. We've got things like crickets and half a dozen different species of fish and 15 different types of mushrooms. And, it's complex, but at the same time, it all is interlinked. So the air from the mushroom I think if every house had a bathroom, bedroom, and a mushroom, we could all easily sustain ourselves. So we've got air, the steam getting drawn out of the shower and going into the mushroom. If the air from the mushroom is going into the glass house atrium that grows the cucumbers and tomatoes. So it's all kind of interlinked, which is what nature is.
Absolutely.
I'm just copying nature.
And where is this house that you're making?
So I'm going to build it here.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to move it into the city of Melbourne. So it'll be available, it'll be open to the public for 6 months in Melbourne. And Matt Stone and Joe Barrett are going to live in it.
That's amazing.
So 2 chefs.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, and I bet people are going to want to stay there. And then, but this is just the example. This is just to spark their interest, right? It's not like you're going to rent out rooms. It's like a hotel. You're just going to kind of inspire people to live this way on their own.
Yeah, I'm just going to make lots of videos so people can see how do you build this house? How do you make it? It's all open source. It's all made from materials that are endlessly recycled. There's no single-use materials going into this house. And mostly materials will be reclaimed materials. So there's lots and hundreds of ideas about reclaiming materials and recycling materials, but everything is open. So you can make a wicking bed for $20, but we'll show you how to do that through a video. How do you make a mushroom? Well, we can show you in this video. Again, using materials that are being thrown away by local cafes and, like coffee grounds and feta buckets and yogurt buckets. And so I'm using materials that are commonly ubiquitous everywhere in society, but repurposing them into food systems.
Orangina, wow.
This is our solar inverter. These solar panels were actually made in Australia. They no longer make them in Australia. So yeah, all the solar is on this middle bit here, which faces north. It's amazing.
And how much energy is produced for your home?
I think we average around 4,500 kilowatts per year. So it works out to around 18 kilowatts a day.
And how much is that, like in terms of the percentage of what your home needs?
Well, because I've got a bore that's 150 meters down, so when I need to irrigate in summer, I need a 3-phase pump to pull water from that far down, and the technology wasn't good enough back then to kind of do that, so we had to connect to the grid here.
Okay.
But I have built a house in King Lake recently that is completely off-grid.
Wow, fantastic. And I want to start living differently because already this conversation has inspired me, and I've been thinking about it for a while. What would be a good step in the right direction for me to move closer to, I won't even want to say zero waste, but less waste in my household?
Making food from scratch is the easiest way. So we're blessed here. We live very close to an amazing biodynamic supermarket that you can get pretty much everything without plastic.
Right.
That's great. So if you're making food from scratch, then it is possible to get, to do it zero waste. I'm also blessed that I've got a dairy farm that, gives us this incredible milk in bottles, and, it's got our name on the top of the lid, and we just wash it out. So not everyone has that luxury, but I think that's changing, especially in Europe and the US as well. There's now so many farmers that are dealing direct. So making food from scratch, and then I just say to people, just grow one thing, like grow rocket. Start with rocket, like a little box. Once people start growing one thing, as soon as you're aware, then you become aware, you start to think, oh, what's the weather? So you start to worry about whether it's going to rain or I need to water because it's dry.
Yeah.
So suddenly you become aware of the environment. And then as soon as you do that, you'll want to grow something else. And I say to people, plant 1 tomato. Don't plant 30. Because you can get 70 kilos of tomatoes from 1 square meter if you've got 1 tomato plant that's doing really well.
Right.
Most people then, they get inspired, they watch a TV show and they go, right, I'm going to go out and plant tomatoes. And suddenly they're inundated and they don't know what to do with it,
Yeah.
So start small. And if you've got a balcony or something like that, like rocket is just one of the easiest plants to grow. And if you've got soil that's really rich with worms and has great microflora, and you're picking those rocket leaves are covered in that microflora. So you're digesting the microflora from the soil. Another great thing is to buy groats, a little oat roller. I've proven, there's a great talk online called Festival 21, why I roll my own oats. Over 5 years, our family would spend $3,000 on buying boxed cereal and generate 750 boxes that need to be recycled.
Oh my gosh.
We buy 10 kilo groat bags, and that's a beautiful calico bag. And the groats last forever, and you're rolling them, and as you're pouring them in the oat roller, you can see the dust coming off them. That dust is soil. And so you, again, as long as you don't cook that into porridge, if you eat them raw, you're getting that microflora, especially if they're biodynamic or organic, because that means that they've been grown in really great soil. You're getting that microflora in from the soil. So just starting with one little thing that you constantly consume, could be herbs, could be something else, like making a pesto, again, raw, don't cook it, you're ingesting the microflora from the soil.
Wow. Well, we will put a link so folks can check out all that you're doing at this amazing home. And I hope this has inspired you guys. I know it's inspired me. Thanks, Joost.
Thanks for coming all the way out. It's a long way to come.
Oh, my pleasure. You guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Click on the notification bell so you can know every time I post a new video. And comment below and let me know what you thought of this conversation and what you're doing to make a difference for the planet. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.